All right, ladies and gentlemen, today's lesson, the final lesson of the unit, is on solving equations using the quadratic formula. Remember, we learned there are three possible ways that you can use to solve quadratic equations. You can solve by factoring, you can solve by completing the square, and the last method is by using the quadratic formula. So, what is the quadratic formula? First of all, make sure that you understand that the general equation of a quadratic equation would be ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So the quadratic formula is what I'm about to write down right now. Now, do not let this freak you out. Although it will look very scary at first, it is not that bad at all. So it is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so this is the quadratic formula. If you want to solve any quadratic equation, you need to get it in this format right here, and then plug it into the formula right here, and this will be your quadratic, or this will give you the answers to your quadratic equation. It will give you whatever x is equal to. Now, you may be wondering right now, is this an equation that I'm going to have to memorize? And the answer to that is yes, you will have to memorize the equation for the quadratic formula. But the good news is there are two songs that might help you remember this equation a little bit better. The first song goes to the tune of Row, Row, Row Your Boat. So the way that this song will go is as follows. X equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. The other song that can help you remember this formula goes to the tune of Pop Goes the Weasel, so it sounds like this. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, so in order to solve this problem, let's use the quadratic formula. So remember, this has to be in the format ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So first thing I'm going to do is I am going to get everything on one side. So I'm going to subtract the 2 from both sides, and I end up getting 1/2 r squared minus 6r minus 2 equals 0. Okay, and then I'm going to figure out what my a value, my b value, and my c values are. So a is 1/2 because it's the coefficient in front of this r squared. So a is 1/2, b is negative 6, and c is negative 2. Now I'm going to go ahead and plug that information into my quadratic formula. I want you to write out the formula every time we do this until it gets really stuck in your head. So remember, it's x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. You guys are going to be sick of that song by the time you're done watching this video. So then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to plug in my information. Now pay close attention to this because this is a little bit tricky. So x equals, my b value right here is negative 6. So when I plug it in for negative b right here, I end up getting positive 6 because negative 6 turns into a positive 6. It's the opposite sign. So this becomes 6 plus or minus the square root of, now this b value is negative 6 again, and I'm going to square it. You need to make sure that that negative is inside of parentheses once you square it. Negative 6 squared minus 4 times the a value, which is 1/2, multiplied by the c value, which is negative 2, and then I'm going to close my parentheses, and that is all over 2 times 1/2. Okay, so then I'm just going to go through and I'm going to evaluate. So the first thing I'm going to do is what's inside of parentheses, and technically what's in here is kind of like, well, it's actually exactly like what's inside of parentheses. So I'm going to figure out what is underneath the square root. That is something called the discriminant, which is something we will get into very shortly. Not in this video, but in the next few days we'll be talking about it. So I end up getting x equals 6 plus or minus, and then I'm going to figure out what this number right here is. So this is going to become 36. I'm also going to figure out what this is. So it's negative 4 multiplied by 1/2 multiplied by negative 2. So negative 4 multiplied by 1/2 is negative 2 times another negative 2 is positive 4. So this is going to say plus 4. And then it's going to be all over, I can figure out what this is in the same step too, so it's all over 1. I'm not done figuring out what's inside of my parentheses or what's underneath this radical, so I'm going to add these numbers together. So I end up getting x equals 6 plus or minus the square root of 40. I technically don't need to have it over 1 anymore because I don't need to, anything divided by 1 is itself. Lastly, what I need to do is I need to make sure that I simplify this radical right here. So 40 is divisible by 4, so this will turn into radical 4 multiplied by radical 10. I'm going to copy everything else down. So x equals 6 plus or minus radical 4 times radical 10. The square root of 4 is 2, so I end up getting x equals 6 plus or minus 2 radical 10, and that is my answer. Okay, sorry about that. The square root sign should be over the 10. All right. Okay, so in this problem right here, it's not in the format ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 because of that 4. So I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides, and I end up getting 2y squared plus 3y minus 9 equals 0. Then I'm going to identify what my a value is, what my b value is, and what my c value is. So my a value I know is 2, my b value is 3, and my c value is negative 9. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to use the quadratic formula, which is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And then I'm going to plug in my information. So I end up getting x equals, now in this example, the b value is positive 3, so I can plug in negative 3 for this b value right here. So I get negative 3 plus or minus the square root of b squared. In this example, remember the b is positive, so it's going to be 3 squared. I don't have to have parentheses, but I can't go wrong with too many parentheses. Minus 4 times the a value, which is 2, multiplied by the c value, which is negative 9. Okay, so then once I do that, I still have to divide that by 2 multiplied by the a value, which is 2. All right, so then next I end up getting x equals negative 3 plus or minus the square root of, this becomes 9 squared, or 9, because 3 squared is 9, and then this becomes negative 4 times 2, which is negative 8, and then negative 8 times negative 9 will end up giving me positive 72 all over 4. All right, so then I can combine my like terms. I get negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 81 all over 4, which actually turns out to be a nice even number for me right here. It's a perfect square. So I get x equals negative 3 plus or minus 9 all over 4, which means that my two possible answers are going to be negative 3 plus 9 over 4 or negative 3 minus 9 over 4. So I end up getting 6 over 4, that's a 4, or negative 12 over 4. which means that my final answer is going to be 3/2 or negative 3. Okay? Again, we'll talk about checking next class. And that's how you use the quadratic formula.